Hey guys, this is video number 2 in a 3-part video series on planning, executing, and working efficiently in a small workshop. In this particular video, we're going to discuss organization of tools and materials and parts and stuff. We'll talk about mobile bases on our heavy tools as well as tables and such, multiple use tools and space-saving tools, and then we'll close this video with dust collection. Okay, let's talk about tools, materials, and parts. Now, tool storage systems they're important to me as the tools you use to get the job done. You have to keep your tools safe, you have to keep them organized. Owning the right tool for the job is one thing, but if you can't find it or you can't find the accessory that fits with it, well, that's a problem. It's important to organize your tools, even labeling them or the drawers that you store them in, or the cases that you store them in, so you know where things are when you need them. Additionally, if you setting up smartly well-designed work and storage stations with the most reach for and used tools is a great idea. To give you an example of how I've set up some of my workstations and tools and stuff, here at my assembly table area, which is right here, let me give an example. For example, cordless tool station. I'll talk about this a little bit further on. A sanding station over here and 2 sanders designed and dedicated to the assembly tables. Marking and measuring station, clamping station all along this wall. A track saw station stored underneath the assembly tables, and fasteners at the assembly table with my drivers. I firmly believe that there's a place for everything and everything in its place, and keep it in the same place every time. Many of my most used carpentry hand tools, clamps, and jigs, they hang on the wall right here or over on the other side of my shop, all on the wall. Now, I like to keep smaller, less used tools organized and dust-free in 2 deployed mechanics chests on the far end of the shop. Out of the way, I don't need them. Each drawer is for similar function tools, and here's an example of some of those drawers. All right, so over here is the taller of my mechanics chest, and in here I've got some things that I charge, some lubricants. I kind of use this for kind of like a staging area for stuff. I might store parts in here, things that I'm working on for a project. But the top drawer here is layout tools. There's some testing tools, calipers, chalk lines, all kinds of things for layout. Then there are pliers and cutters, screwdrivers. This one here it says blades, miscellaneous, but I've changed it. It's now electrical parts and things. I've got to change the label. Wrenches, so wrenches and locking pliers and adjustable pliers, Allen wrenches. Down here is all chisels, miscellaneous tools and power tools and things like that. So in here I have like my 6.5-inch saw that I might use to break down some stuff, and some lighting, some wrenches and heavier tools. Over here is my compass, micrometer, nail sets, blades, and other fine small precision tools. Profile sanding, X-Acto knives, and different types of blades here. Impact driver, bits and nuts, and all kinds of assemblies and kits that I have in here that I don't need necessarily at my assembly table. I have the bare minimum over there, but this is where I store the other stuff. Putty knives, shears, hammers, ball peen hammer, cordless tools, my M12 cutoff saw, right angle drill, wrench, and a Dremel type tool, a Ryobi type Dremel tool. And then on the bottom here, I've got an impact driver, a heat gun, impact wrenches, and stuff like that. So that's what I keep over here. Batteries are stored here on this cage, and over here is is my compressor, and I'll talk about my compressor. It's actually in that box. But let's move over here real quick. I'll show you this other mechanic set. All right, on the other side of the room, I've got this shorter setup. I've got some sharpening stuff on top and batteries and things. But in here, again, this is just this is a catch-all drawer. I have miscellaneous marking things, some first aid stuff, computer cables and chargers and cell phone type of stuff. Over here is electrical router and miscellaneous. I might have extra parts or things that I haven't quite set up or used. I keep parts in plastic bags and stuff if I don't need things. if I don't need them or I have extra parts for stuff. Here is something, extra router-based screws with a strip. So I don't like to throw things away. I also hold on to things that break or I take apart, and I keep these for jigs because they make great jigs on stuff. So the whole storage thing is just, this is for routers and compressors and stuff like that, extra parts. So that's what I have here. Let me see, what do I have down here? Here is blades. Then I think I have impact sockets and metric sockets in here with a 12-volt driver. This is batteries, extra charging some batteries. I like to keep a bunch of different batteries for the tools that we test. Some photo gear. Over here is, paint brushes, rubber gloves and swabs. More fastening and hex fasteners. This is step drills and Craig bit parts and some more fasteners, metal cutting mostly. And then in here I keep an iron for some veneering, and I got a couple of DeWalt tools that I keep in there. All right, behind me, I repurposed 2 sets of wall cabinets from a remodel that we did, and I store a lot of manuals and miscellaneous parts and stuff for my tools. So I also have, I've got some bourbon in there too for not when we're working with tools. I got my sanders here, dado set for the table saw, which is right here, shaper accessories, router accessories, jigs for the shaper table, which is right here. And then there's additionally some extra parts and trade books and code books, things like that we use. So all the manuals, some trade books, HEPA filters, vacuum bags, code books, some other miscellaneous parts, light bulbs, and things that I know where to go. A lot of my vacuum accessories are here as well. Let's take a look at the other side of the shop. So behind me, in the rear of the shop, it's an addition that I built. I added onto the house, so I made it part of the shop. I made some shelving out of leftover plywood, and I basically built them as open shelves for additional larger, lesser used tools. Tools that I might use on the job site, but not very often, like an SDS drill or some sort of a tile saw or something. It's become a catch-all for a lot of things. Here's an example of some of the things that are in here. Let's take a look. So some of the things you might find in here are SDS drills and bits and dust extractor accessories, ProPress tool hoses, jigs, cords. I have a router with a flattening mill, water pumps, tap and die sets, large and small domino accessories and tools. A plug-in Sawzall as a backup, extra nailers for my business, clamps and cords. You might find some tile, like I said, tile layout tools, hardwood floor nailer, concrete nailer, door mortising kit. I have a metal saw back here, a portable planer, drop cloths. And then over here I have 2 cabinets filled with house stains and paints and miscellaneous parts and dust collection parts and electrical, you name it. I've got it in here. So I want to talk a little bit about putting tools on wheels. Mobile tool bases are ideal for moving, storing, and basically servicing large tools in any workshop, really. In my small workshop, all of my woodworking tools are on mobile bases like here and here. What does that allow me? It allows me to be able to store these tools against the wall, out of the way when not using them, right? And then it leaves the center floor area, the center area in my shop, open for assembling and other operations, my table saw operations or whatever. And then I set up my tools on mobile bases like from Rockler. I used Portamate and even Jet's mobile bases. And as we discussed in video number 1, tables should be on mobile bases as well, or casters, so that you can move them easily and effortlessly. That way you can pull them out, use them, you can push them back in when you don't need them. Next, I want to talk to you guys about storing tools with their accessories and making like-minded stuff. So consider accessory and part storage. These are the items that get tossed into a drawer, a bucket, a box, somewhere, right? And can never be found when you're looking for them, right? I mean, it drives me insane when I can't find something I know I have. Everyone can see that bright drill, that bright yellow drill across the way, but try finding that thin little slim drill bit that's another story, right? So put similar tools and accessories together. For example, you should not have your pneumatics all over the shop. Where you got to walk over here and get one, one's in a drawer over here, whatever. You should keep them all in one spot, keep your nails behind. I keep a lot of my nails behind the nailers, and all the rest of them in a drawer right here, right next to the assembly table. Additionally, my routers, my sanders, my domino and biscuit cutter, all of them are right near the biscuits and bits and abrasives and anything else that they need to do their job. Everything gets stored together so I don't go looking for it. Consider dedicating spaces to similar items, such as building a cordless tool station that you can hang on the wall with your chargers and batteries, for example. That's a huge efficiency win. Organize and label your drawers. I'm going to say that throughout every video we do because it's important. Put together repetitive task jigs, store them in one place, like your Craig jigs, your screws, your bits, everything you need. Store all your sandpaper in one shelf, in one spot, with maybe your spray cans and your silicones and lubricants. And put all your nails in one drawer so that you know where everything is every single time. And you know, labeling tools and drawers, we talked about this, and I'm gonna talk it to death because it's important. Labeling tools can be as simple as a black marker, a white paint marker, or even just the real laminated labels. I prefer using the labels. I got a label maker at Staples, it was cheap. I labeled everything. I labeled my Sprinter van, my shop, my toolboxes. Look, being organized, it's a way of life for me, and it helps me navigate life's chaos. Imagine a workshop where you can find every tool, every jig and board without almost looking more than once, right? The secret is using labels on toolboxes and tools. And look, let me explain. If you store your tools in their toolboxes, for example, labeling that toolbox can assist you or somebody working for you or with you to quickly assess and find the tool that you're looking for. You can send them into the other room and say, look for the tool that has blah, blah, blah on it. The same principle applies for parts and fasteners. Labeling saves time and frustration. For example, I've got 3 routers. All of them, the wrenches are all right over there. All of them have 3 wrenches. You'd think they'd be all the same size, they're not. Labeling them saves time and aggravation when I'm trying to fiddle around trying to get the correct wrench. I just write Bosch router, Makita router, Milwaukee router. A simple permanent black marker makes quick work of this, and that's what I did. I just wrote right on both sides of the wrench. I've gone so far as to add labels on tools that require consumable accessories. What do I mean? What do I mean by that? Well, like my vacuum bags, specialty bulbs, air filters for my air filtration system. For example, I mark my workshop, my Delta air filter. I marked right on the side of it what the replacement air filter was, so that I could quickly get that part number. I know, just look at the label. I can go right online and order it, replacement filter. I do the same thing with my dust extractor vacuum bags and HEPA filters. I know when I use my last one, I've got the label right on the tool. I don't have to go looking for the manual to find it. Let's talk a little bit about multiple use and space-saving tools, because they're a must in a small shop. Examples of multiple use tools are my oscillating bench sander, spindle bench sander, and my disc and belt sanders. So what I like about that, well, first of all, I put this guy right here. I put it on an extension slide so I can slide it out or slide it back in when I'm not using it, right up against the wall. So that allows me a little bit more space saving. My 2 tables in the middle of the floor, as we covered in video number 1, they have tool storage. They're for assembly, they're for outfeed, sanding operations, clamping operations with the Rockler tracks. Space-saving tools pretty much mean benchtop tools as well. Like I can pull out, for example, my thickness planer. I can pull it out, clamp it down, use it on one of these tables. My track saw, I store it under my assembly tables. I can pull it out. Panel maker, sanders, all of that stuff can be benchtop versions and put away when not needed, which I think is important. I mounted both of these sanders next to each other, by the way, because they fit the same application, but also they connect permanently to dust extraction, which I've got right up here. I've got a main trunk line, and that's a perfect place for them. All right, let's talk a little bit about the table saw and router table. They're together in the same spot. The table saw is the center of the workshop, and it came with this side extension, black laminate extension table. So what I did is I basically cut a Rockler router plate right into it, in here. And I put the fence on the far right side of this table, and I basically set the router into the table. The router underneath it has what's called a Rockler dust right box. It's below the table. A 4-inch dust collection hose connects to it and does a really good job at connecting the dust. It also has this 2-inch hose that comes up. So basically the dust collection connects to that box, and then this 2-inch comes from that, which works really good, so I can collect dust above and below the table. Both the table saw and the router connect to 2 separate 4-inch dust hoses that run simultaneously to this jet dust collector right behind me. I did this because I really wanted the shortest route possible and the strongest CFMs for dust sucking ability for these 2 machines. They're heavy dust producing machines. I used to run all the way along the trunk line to the back of the shop, and it just wasn't as efficient. Now, since we're talking about dust, let's move on and talk about dust collection, sanders, and my miter saw, which has always been a pet peeve. So in the rear of my shop, I have a Grizzly 2 horsepower dust collector. It's the first dust collector I ever bought. I hard pipe this unit to a trunk line right along the ceiling here, on the back wall. And I used Schedule 20 pipe to do this, installed some blast gates, and I created 3 dedicated connections with 3 what I would call hookup temporary connections. The dust collector has a wall mounted switch right here, and that controls in the back room, which is nice. It was centrally located at one time in the shop, but my needs have changed. And with today's technology, walking over to hit a switch is a pain in the neck, right? So you have options. You can now turn your dust collector on remotely, or wire your blast gates to turn on when you pull them open, or stuff like that. There's actually a great article and video called Dust Collector Remote Switching over at homeconstructionimprovement.com. My partner Todd Fratzel at Toolbox Buzz wrote that article for his workshop. He did a beautiful job with it. This is very basic. So let's talk about my permanent connections. I have 2 dust collecting machines. I have the disc belt sander and the oscillating belt spindle sander. As well, actually I have 3 machines. I have the table saw and the router as well, but it's a different machine, dust collector machine collecting. But I have 3 permanently set up machines. And then I have those 3 hookup locations. So right here behind me, I have a low floor connection. This connection is located on the back wall of the shop, and it's connected to this Rockler dust right flex hose. And I use this for dominoes, my domino cutting or biscuit cutting. I used to use it for sanding, but I've now since created 2 dedicated sanders on vacuums at my assembly table. I have a ceiling connection also above my assembly table. I used to use it for a sander as well. Now it's for dominoes or other things. I can just put a hose there and use it. And then at the rear of the shop, put that right there. At the rear of the shop, I have a connection that comes down with a blast gate that I can connect to my joiner, my drill press, or any tool at the rear of the shop. I used to have my panel saw back there and my shaper. Now my shaper and panel saw are over here, and I can hook them up this way. So now I want to talk about the miter saw. It's a pain in the neck, trust me. Early on, I had a pipe running across the ceiling, and it came down the wall to the miter saw. Connecting to the miter saw was not a great idea, and I mostly, blew it off, turning on the dust collector because, well, it's over there and across the row. So to make 1 miter cut for something I'm assembling, I'd have to walk over to turn on, turn off, because I didn't want to listen to it. So when you're working in a shop that, the reality of bouncing between tools is high, and many times I found myself needing to make just that quick miter cut, and I just blew it off. So over the years, I've come to realize that my weak link in dust in the shop was the miter saw station. Dust everywhere. I needed to collect the dust at the source here and not have it travel across the shop to the rear room back behind me, but I have to turn it on over there. So what I did was I made a mini dust collection station right here at the shop, basically just using a vacuum right here. So one thing that I wanted to avoid was having to lean over or lean down and flick a vacuum switch on. So I researched some quality vacuums that had power tool actuated switches. Lots of them come now like that. My miter saw basically goes down through the table here, plugs into my vacuum, and the vacuum plugs into the power outlet, standard outlet. So once I start my miter saw, the vacuum starts up and will continue to run for 15 seconds. And that basically is just allow it to clear the air through the hose and capture as much dust as possible. Now, miter saws are notoriously inefficient anyway at collecting dust. I haven't found one that's been really good yet, but this does help. My vac has a 15-gallon capacity, and I mostly use plastic, paper bags, sometimes the fleece bags if I have to. And I probably change this 4 or 5 times a year. That's all I really need to do. It works okay, but not great. And you can see that not all of the dust, when you use this, not all the sawdust is collected, which is kind of a bummer. But look, not everybody has the budget for a heavy-duty vacuum like I did, and the budget to do that. So an alternative solution to that you could do is buy the, Rockler makes this thing called an eye socket switch. It's basically a box that you plug into and plug into the wall, and the vacuum plugs into it, and it turns your vacuum on when the saw goes on, and it'll run for like 7 seconds or something like that after you stop the saw. Very similar to what I have here. All right, next I want to talk about my dust collection at the table saw, router, and here at my shaper. It's right here. It stores actually right where the camera is, on wheels. My jet dust collector is a 2 horsepower, 230 volt single phase. They call it a vortex cone collector. And to use the machine, I had to wire a 230 volt outlet to my shop. I used to turn the machine on and off at the motor down below. I could try to bend it down, so I mounted a switch right here at the table saw. It's designed as a single stage machine rated for continuous duty, and the aerodynamically designed chamber of this, it's a 14-inch cone combination, is what drives the jet vortex cone system. Basically, the machine turns the sawdust, and you can actually see it swirling when it's running like a tornado or a cyclone, which allows the machine to separate the wood chips down from the airborne dust, the fine stuff. And the cyclonic action takes that place in the lower chamber of the bag, and the larger chips just drop. And the nasty airborne particulate is captured up here in the filter. It's a pleated filter, which is nice. I haven't had to change it. It's been a few years, probably due. When I need to use my shaper right here, or my panel making machine, which I've made it into a benchtop machine, I just disconnect the 4-inch hose from the router table, bring it over and extend it to the tools, lock this down and use it right here. And I use it whatever I need for feeding. I purposely did not install blast gates on these 2 hoses for the jet because I did not want to deal with them. I just want to move. And the jet is able to handle both machines at the same time, so that's a win. And like I said, I hardwire the switch right here directly above the table saw to control the dust collector and prevent me from being lazy and blowing it off and walking over, bending down and hitting a switch down here, or a switch on the wall or something like that. The jet also has casters which allow the machine, to be pulled out, moved. If I need to move it, maybe get a little bit additional hose length, or just sweep behind it. All right, let's talk a little bit about dust collector needs. When determining your need, you need to consider a few things. CFM requirements for your tools is one. Table saws, miter saws, shapers, band saws, they're all rated somewhere in the vicinity of 300 CFM. Joiners, disc sanders, they're going to come in around 450 CFM. And then you've got belt sanders at 550 CFM. So you need some good suction for when you're doing the sanding stuff. Thickness planers, they're up in the vicinity of 785 CFM, and they've got lots of heavy dust. They need to be sucked up. Other factors to consider when you're choosing a dust collection system are, will you operate more than 1 or 2 machines at one time? And I sometimes do. The other thing you want to ask yourself is, do you need blast gates? You want to be able to open and close blast gates and control different machines and leave your dust collection on? Do you want to do wireless connection? The length of the collection pipe including elbows, which can add up to like 10 feet or something to the drag, vertical rise, and all of that stuff. The vertical rise, the elbows and stuff, affect the collector's efficiency. So elbows, rising up, running across, consider all of that stuff. The other thing I want to talk to you guys is about air filtration in your workshop. Now, wood dust becomes a potential health problem when wood particles or particulate from sanding and cutting, mostly sanding, become airborne. And the purpose of an air filter is to capture and reduce airborne dust as quickly as possible. Now, in my case, cedar dust irritates my sinuses. Actually, a lot of sawdust does, but it gets into my lungs, it wreaks havoc on my respiratory system for weeks. So, and I love the smell of cedar and I love cutting it, but I've really got to be good about collecting it. So not capturing airborne dust can cause allergic reactions and other health effects. And it can cause things such as, eyes and ear irritations, respiratory effects, like I get in my lungs sometimes, even nasal cancer. Also, the increased sensitivity to wood dust, which is common for a lot of guys in the trades, carpenters. So what I did was I installed a Delta filtration system in my shop up here to combat airborne dust particles. Put it on a kind of a eye hooks and a chain, and I placed it near the rear side wall, approximately a third of the way along the long rectangular wall of my shop. Now, a good rule of thumb when you're mounting these things is about 7 to 10 feet off the floor, if you can, along the longest wall, so that the intake is approximately a third of the distance from the shorter wall. And best practices tell you to mount the unit no further than 4 to 6 inches from the wall, but that's not always possible. I couldn't do that here. You do what you got to do. You make it work. The exhaust is the largest terminator of the circulation pattern. So the exhaust comes out this way and it kind of creates a circulation thing. And by mounting the unit in the suggested location, basically you're trying to encourage circulation parallel to the floor ceiling, right? So trying to create kind of a circular circulation thing where you're collecting stuff through this filtration system. The two most important criteria for an air filter are CFM and the filters. Now, you want a CFM factor, a machine that can clean the size of your shop, and a filter that removes particle size that you're concerned about. Something in the 1 micron or something like that, or even smaller. The Delta dust filtration system I use has what's called like a pleated pocket inner filter. It's a heavy-duty pleated outer filter with this electrostatic pre-filter. And it works together to trap dust particles larger than 1 micron. Guys, to determine the size required for airflow for your filter in your shop, there is a formula you can use. It's basically the volume of your workshop. So it's the length, width, and height of your workshop times the number of air changes per hour that you're looking for. Typically, they recommend 6 to 8. And then you divide that by 60. 6 to 8 exchanges divided by 60. This will give you the answer in cubic feet per minute, which is how air cleaners are measured, how this guy's measured. I turn my unit on, and I usually just leave it on during cutting and sanding operations. But I'm better about collecting dust at the source. I'm not putting a lot of air in the air, dust in the air. I'm collecting it at the sander. But what I usually do is I'll just turn this thing on when I'm done or when I'm cleaning the shop, so it cleans the air while the dust is being kicked around. And then I'll leave the shop. I'll leave it on for 2 hours or so. And allows the timer allows the filter to continue cleaning the air after I've left the shop, which helps keep the shop cleaner as well as dust migrating into my house or furnace or whatever. The results are immediately noticeable because there's not a lot of surface dust after I clean and I leave this thing running. The air cleaner is definitely worth having, but more importantly than this is collecting the dust at the source. Now this has a remote control. I'm not even sure the battery works because I just control it right here. I can reach it and I can turn it on and off and set the timer. My filter, it does great for a 14 by 28-ish shop. It's designed for about a 20 by 20 foot room, and it'll exchange the air of 13 to 18 times an hour, somewhere around there. Look, I can work in my shop without a dust mask now because my systems collect dust at the source. I'm collecting any airborne dust. I know that's not perfect. I'm not telling you that my shop is is perfect, but it's dialed in pretty good, and I don't like wearing masks. So that's what I was looking for when I did this. Perfect? Nope, not perfect, but good enough for me. All right, look guys, in closing, that wraps up video number 2. For video number 3, we're gonna wrap up this series and we're gonna talk about 4 additional topics. We're gonna talk about the compressed air system that I plumbed in, the temperature controls, humidity, rust on tools, lighting, power considerations, and then individual tool and wood storage. Individual tools, wood storage, and some of that stuff. If there's something that you'd like to see me cover, because I haven't done this video yet, I still have to do it, in number 3. If you want me to cover something specific that you haven't seen here yet in video number 3, leave a comment and I will absolutely try to include it. You got about a week of to do it before I make that 3rd video. So additionally, I'm working on this cool project with my friend Jeff Dietz, Toolbox Buzz crew member, where we're doing a mobile vertical workshop. It's his garage, so he needs his garage to park his vehicle in, but he needs a workshop. So everything's mobile, goes to the walls, but also vertical. We've got lifts that lift and lower workbenches and things like that. Really cool setup. We're using some of the pack out stuff on the wall. We're using the vertical lifts, and everything's going on wheels. We're doing a bunch of the POC workbench designs for the miter table, the assembly table, and things like that. So it's going to be a very cool video. It's probably 3 or 4 weeks out from here, but I hope you check it out. Guys, we'll see you next time. I look forward to talking to you guys in the comment section. Take care.